in the middle. Is Mr. Mendoza going to join us?
Yes, Your Honor. Let me go find out if he's there yet. He's doing it from our office.
Are we missing anybody else?
I don't think so, Judge.
Okay.
Your Honor, we do have, defense counsel did reserve Donald Bell from probation. I told him to be on standby if he's needed, so he'll be ready to hop on if he needs to.
Okay.
And hang on just a second, Judge. I'm going to give them a quick call real quick.
Okay.
Hustling about. Usually they respond to text immediately, so I imagine they're hustling about to get something set up with it. All right, they're just getting it set up, Judge. I guess they ran into some technical problem, but they've been working on it, and he's there at the office. They should be on any moment. We were trying to get both of us to do it at the office, but it's just not big enough to not have the feedback.
Yeah, you'd have to be on the same one in order to do it that way. We discovered that trying to do them in the courtroom.
Yeah. I think what I have done in the courtroom, I just have to speak really loudly because they can't really have mine on.
The problem up here though is that the internet's so bad, especially our wing of the courthouse.
Yeah, no, they're all different. I find that the second floor seems to be the best spot for them. They're saying that it won't let them in. Right. Hold on, I'm going to send him something else. Hang on.
There they are.
Oh, okay.
All right. Is everybody here now?
Yes, Your Honor.
This is 0038279552019. It's a continuation of our hearing last week on a plea of not true. I don't remember if the state rested or if you just were done calling witnesses for that day.
Yes, sir. I think both sides rested.
Okay. And I guess we're in the argument now then.
We had
I had an opportunity to review the videos, and I do believe that there were statements that were made after he was in custody that I'm going to ignore regarding what he had to drink that day. So, but anyway, the statement make a closing argument, I guess.
Your Honor, all the allegations other than the two that we dropped are true. He was driving without a license. He was driving. He was evading arrest while he was driving. He kept driving after it was a good minute. There were plenty of places to pull over. He did not consent to a blood draw, and he did not report this arrest to probation. All the allegations are true in this case.
Your response?
Yes, Judge. First of all, there was no judgment offered and no evidence offered by the state as to allegation number one that he committed the offense or that it was a final judgment or that he had pled guilty. So I don't believe that there's any evidence on the record indicating that they've met their burden on number one. On number two, while he didn't have his license, he did get that fixed and got his occupational driver's license, and that wound up being dismissed. This does happen in many cases. It's a technical violation that I don't think gets you jail time, Your Honor. The other thing was, as far as not furnishing a blood sample, even if he had said, yes, I'm going to do it under the evidence presented by the state, there was no way that would have been able to be done anyway. And I think we're splitting hairs when we're saying that he failed to submit to a blood test or a breath test, when the reality is that there was no way that could be executed. With respect to number 6, that did get fixed as well, because I don't think he was necessarily driving his car. He shouldn't have been driving that car. That's correct. But we're looking at some allegations here that at the end of the day really go into the technical area. We're close to the end of his probation. I believe it ends on the 26th of this month of this year. He has done a lot on his case, and it wasn't until the end of it that he ran into some problems as far as this goes. He is gainfully employed, and missing out work is going to make it very difficult for him to be able to his job and comply with the terms of his probation. And I do not believe that the state was able to successfully meet their burden, even on a preponderance of the evidence. Thank you, Judge.
Anything else from the state?
No, Judge.
All right. After listening to all the evidence in the testimony, I do find paragraph 1 to be true, paragraph 2 to be true, paragraph 3 to be true. Paragraph 4 as worded is not true, because I did ignore what he told the police officers. paragraph 5 was abandoned, paragraph 6 is true, and paragraph 7 was abandoned. Did y'all want to move straight into punishment, or?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Is there
Yes, Your Honor.
anything else to offer by the state?
No, Judge, other than the punishment evidence that was conditionally admitted, the 2 911 calls.
Right. Okay. And I
But
have
no
that.
evidence, and we just have 1 witness.
Okay. Do you want to call your, do you want any opening argument on punishment, Malcolm?
No, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. In this particular case, we are very close to the end of probation in this particular case. You did find that number 1 was true, but at the end of the day, he may have a long probation to serve on it. He may not. But if he does have a long probation on it, it would be one that would be, at the end of the day, much longer than anything that could be given in this case. The other thing is putting someone in jail at this point in time with COVID, I think is incredibly difficult, and to lose a job. And I understand that he faces up to a year in jail. I'm not sure that that's what we really want to do in the interest of justice. There was some effort made to remedy the violations in this particular cause. He managed to get his monthly supervision fees paid. He managed to complete the programs that he needed to complete. And he did manage to somehow get a license as well as his deep lung device put into the car to make sure that he was in compliance. And he did maintain employment throughout the entire time that he has been under probation. You asked that the court consider that when listening to the evidence of both sides, including not just the victim in this case that was played out almost a year and a half ago, but with the probation officer as well.
You can call your first witness.
State calls Wendy Crooks.
Right. If you would raise your right hand and be sworn. You swear or affirm testimony about to give be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Right.
Good morning, Ms. Crooks. Can you spell your name for the record?
WENDYCROOKS.
Okay, and how are you employed?
I'm employed at a nonprofit organization in Plano, full time.
What does that nonprofit do?
They find jobs for people with disabilities.
Okay. And were you driving on November 1st, 2018?
Was.
Were you in a car accident?
I was leaving church that evening, and I pulled out into there was no traffic whatsoever. It was completely dark. And
Objection as to narrative, Your Honor.
Same. That's
Let's
yes, I
start
was
at the
driving a
beginning.
car.
Let's start at the beginning, Ms. Crooks. So you were driving, where was this?
On the service road in McKinney, going north on 75.
Okay. You left church. What time of day was this?
It was around 9 o'clock at night.
Okay. What happened? What happened before the wreck? Did you see anything right before the accident happened?
So when I pulled out onto the service road, the road was completely black. Like I said, there were no cars whatsoever, and I just pulled out, got in the immediate lane, and then I moved over to the middle lane because ultimately I was going to U-turn and go south on 75.
Okay. And then you were struck by a vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, I was. I really didn't know what hit me until the car came to rest.
Okay. So it came from behind you. It rear-ended you?
Yes.
Okay. So, what happened to the cars when it hit you?
So my car sped around about 7 times before it ultimately came to rest up on by the Honda dealership facing the traffic.
Okay. What happened to his car?
I ultimately saw that it had hit the there's these, I believe, some cement poles surrounding the Honda dealership there. And it came to rest there. And the other car that went around ended up in the Whataburger parking lot, I believe.
Okay. So there was another car nearby?
Yeah, they were drag racing. There was like 12 people that were.
Objection, non-responsive.
Same. Ask another question, rephrase the question.
Well, so is there another car?
There was another car.
Okay, and
It managed to go around me instead of hitting me.
okay, and were you able to determine if there was if those two cars were interacting with each other?
All the witnesses that came to help me to get me out of the car stated.
Objection, non-responsive.
Overruled.
You can continue, Ms. Crooks.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this is still so hard. So many, a year and a half later. All the witnesses said that they were calling 911
Objection as to hearsay, Judge.
Same.
because
Go ahead
Ms.
and
Crooks,
ask
I'll
another.
ask another question.
he hit me at about 100 miles an hour.
Objection, no question was answered and asked that that be struck from the record, Your Honor.
Same. Go ahead and ask
Ms.
another.
Crooks, if you had to guess how fast the car that hit you was going, how fast would that be?
Objection as to speculation, Judge. He earlier stated she didn't know what hit her.
Sustained.
It was about 100 miles an hour.
Ms. Crooks, I'll ask a question and you can just answer the questions that I ask. I know that this is very difficult to talk about.
Judge, I'll ask that that be struck from the record as well.
Sustained.
Ms. Crooks, how was it? So the car turned 7 times. Was that a hard impact?
It was extremely hard.
How far? So your car rotated 7 times. How far did the car travel from the impact to where it stopped?
It was 700 yards because I had to pass that every day to go to work. There are tire tracks and still to this day.
Okay. What damage happened to your car?
My car was completely totaled. And
So,
all the airbags deployed.
Did whenever the wreck, right after the wreck happened, did you lose consciousness for a second, or were you there the whole time?
I didn't lose consciousness. I was very shaken, and I had to go into the ambulance, and they said that I was tachycardic, which
Objection as to hearsay, Your Honor.
I did not lose consciousness.
Sustained.
Did the defendant come and check on you to see if you were okay?
Oh, he ran from the scene.
Saw him running?
No, one of the guys that came to help me brought him back to the
Objection
scene.
as to hearsay and asked that that be struck from the record, Your Honor.
Sustained.
So, but he never came to offer assistance or give any his information or anything. Now, how were you after the wreck?
Immediately after the wreck, I went to the hospital to get some CAT scans and different things because my shoulder and neck and back were really hurt, and my knee hurt too. So they wanted to check and see what was going on.
What physical injuries did you end up having?
I ended up having some torn cartilage in my knee, and like 3 of my discs were bulging in my neck and back because of it. And I required a lot of physical therapy and injections in my neck and back and knee for pain.
Can you tell me about the injections?
I had to be sedated twice. They did the knee and the neck once, and then they did the neck and back at the same time, the second time.
Okay. Can you tell me about the physical therapy, how long it lasted, what that entailed?
Physical therapy was about 4 or 5 months, and I had to go. At first, it was 3 or 4 times, like every other day, and then it was as I started to improve a little bit, they let me come twice a week, and then ultimately once a week for about 4 or 5 months.
Okay. I want to go back to the scene one more time, just briefly. Did you call any family members, or did someone else call family members for you?
So I was not able to call, and I didn't even know where my phone or anything was. But one of the witnesses called my husband and had my husband make his way toward the scene.
Okay. Was it just your husband or anybody else that came?
No, my daughter came. One of my daughters came with him.
How old is she, or how old was she?
At the time, she was 17.
So but by the time that they arrived, were you in the ambulance already or not yet?
I was in the ambulance at that time, yes.
So your daughter saw you in the ambulance, and they saw the totaled car.
Mm-hmm. And
Objection calls for speculation, Judge.
well, they told me that they saw.
Objection.
I'm sorry, Judge, what was the ruling?
Sustained.
Did you see your daughter whenever you're in the ambulance?
Yes, so she came into the ambulance crying because she saw the car and saw, his car laid to rest, and was just really upset. And then my other daughter came to the hospital.
Objection is to non-responsive on the latter part after the daughter came to the hospital.
Sustained.
Did your other daughter come to the hospital?
She did. She came. She had somebody bring her to the hospital for me because she was quite upset, actually.
Was that hard for your daughters to see you like that?
They both expressed that they were scared, that they
Objection is to
lost their
hearsay,
mom.
Judge.
Sustained.
How are you now, Ms. Crooks?
So now most of the time I can drive okay, but I back up, my house lives back up to a major street, and whenever I hear a loud car that appears to be racing, it will throw me into a tailspin. I still have a tremendous amount of PTSD because of it. Sometimes my husband says that I'll jerk the car to
Objection is to hearsay,
passes
Judge.
me.
Sustained.
Ms. Crooks, do you ever, how is your driving now?
So for the most part, I'm okay, but if a car passes me quickly, I struggle still to this day. My husband said that.
Objection is to hearsay, Judge.
Sustained.
So, Ms. Crooks, if you can describe that without saying anything else that other people said, just about your
Okay,
experience.
sure. So sometimes I will jerk the steering wheel to the right if a car passes me very quickly, because I still get very nervous about driving.
And do you have any opinion on whether this defendant's probation should be revoked in this case?
I never wanted to let him plead the deal to begin with. I felt like it was so incredibly reckless, given that he had already had a DUI that year, that he was, it just.
Objection as to the statement of facts not in evidence, whether there was a DWI or DUI prior to this, Judge.
Your Honor, the
Overruled, DWI second.
Your Honor, we'd at least like to have a judgment or something. How does she know he was convicted without some sort of record? She's not an expert witness in convictions, Judge.
I don't know.
Your Honor,
Public record.
He's been.
May I respond to that, Judge?
DWI second. No, it's you don't need to. It's DWI second. That's the charge.
and Your Honor, she also read her victim impact statement at that plea, so she is personally aware of it.
Okay.
That victim impact statement is not in evidence in this case.
I agree with that. Okay, go ahead and ask another question.
You can continue, Ms. Crooks.
I don't believe that he should continue on with his probation. I think it's just a matter of time before he kills somebody.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Defense have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. You mentioned that you were on the access road going northbound prior to the Honda dealership and the Whataburger. When did you enter onto that access road?
I entered, if you're familiar with that area, at Covenant Christian Church, right?
So would you have entered, say, on El Dorado or on an exit towards Virginia Parkway?
So it is, it's a business that is in between El Dorado and Highway 380.
So that covers about 3 or 4 miles. So I'm just trying to figure out how long you were on the highway before, on the access road before the accident occurred.
Probably about, do you want like time-wise?
No, just about how much distance were you on that access road before the accident?
Less than a quarter of a mile, if I had to guess.
Because you'd thrown out some figures like 700 yards and things like that. So I was going to ask you about that. Did you measure?
I think I said a couple hundred yards, probably.
All right.
But you never twirled 7 times.
But you never measured the actual time or distance from impact in the twirl. Is that correct?
Have I ever measured it? No.
All right.
All I know is I
you
had
had also
time.
objection non-responsive.
The same.
And you'd also mentioned that you'd had PTSD. So I was wanting to see, have you had any treatment for that?
I did go to see a psychiatrist about it.
And did you follow up with all of the recommendations from the psychiatrist?
Yes, I did.
What were the recommendations?
So the recommendations were to give it some time and see if it got better, which it did a little bit over time. And then if it weren't to get much better, I have not gone back for counseling at this point, no.
So you had mentioned that you basically have PTSD every time that you drive now, but you think it's better?
I didn't say that.
How often do you think you have PTSD episodes on a weekly basis?
I would say maybe once a week or once every other week. It's not, I mean, it's more when it's situational. Like I can drive to work, and if a race car doesn't pass me by really quickly, it's not a factor. I'm fine with that. It's just things that bring me back to the accident that.
So in your opinion, from the date of your accident until now, has there been improvement?
Oh yeah, I couldn't get out of bed when it first happened. I was so afraid to drive.
I'm just trying to understand, because in your testimony, you seem to intimate that this was continuing to be debilitating for you. Would you agree with that statement?
Debilitating? I mean, I still function. I'm a mother of 4 kids. I have to work and I have to do what I need.
I'm just trying to figure out.
I mean,
Ms. Crooks,
I suck it up. That's what you're saying.
Crooks, no, Ms. Crooks, I'm trying to figure out if you're advocating or if you're telling us the truth, because there's a
Objection, badgering the witness, Judge.
And just ask another question.
So at the end of the day, you have gotten treatment and it has gotten better, correct?
Yeah, with time, most things do get better, my experience.
And you feel that you're able to function and be able to cart your family around and be where you were prior to having this accident?
Driving, yes. You want to talk about the physical pain? We can go there.
No, I was just talking about what you had mentioned with respect to PTSD.
Okay, sure. That's it.
Ask the witness.
Any further questions?
Nothing further, Judge.
This witness released.
Released by defense.
You're free to go.
Can I stay and see the outcome?
You can stay. Do you have any other witnesses?
If you can mute yourself though, Ms. Crooks. No other
Absolutely.
witnesses, Judge. Stay rest.
Does defense have any witnesses?
Your Honor, we'd like to recall the probation officer.
Can y'all get probation officer?
Yes, Judge, I will call him right now. He'll be right here, Judge.
Is that?
He'll be right here.
Okay. You're hooked up. Mr. Bell, you're still under oath and you'll need to unmute. There you go. All right.
Thank you, Judge. May I begin?
You may.
Please state your name.
Donald Bell.
And Mr. Bell, my name is Malcolm Miranda, and I'm currently representing one of your probationers, Porfirio Mendoza. Do you know Porfirio Mendoza?
Yes.
He entered into probation with you on July 26th, I believe, of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And he had been given a series of tasks to complete as well as reporting to you on a monthly basis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I remember during the time that you were testifying earlier in trial, you had mentioned that he had failed to report his new offense to you, I guess, within 48 hours of the time that it occurred, correct?
Yes, sir. We spoke about it at his next office meeting, at his next office visit.
And isn't it true that that next office visit or phone visit was the Monday following his arrest?
I would have to look at the date again. I'm not sure about that.
And let me see if I can give you a timeline of that. The offense happened on March 28, 2020.
Yes.
And I believe that was a Saturday or a Sunday.
I'd
So
have
this,
to look at a calendar to figure that out.
okay. Did you have a meeting with him that Monday? So that would be 3:30, I believe. And just looking over at your.
I think the previous testimony was on April
on
14th.
April 14th, yes.
Now, in your Chronos, on page 11, there's an office visit that was done on phone. So it's on March 30th, 2020.
Okay, one second.
And if you look at the next page on page 12, you list that he did in fact report that to you that day.
On 3:30, you're saying?
Correct.
You're correct. I did miss that. On 3:30, I did have an office visit with him and we discussed it. That's when he was saying he went to go get some things. And
I'm going to ask you some more. I'm going to ask you some more questions about just the compliance in general.
okay.
Now, is your caseload pretty varied, or do you have a lot of DWI probationers on?
It's varied
And how long have you been a probation officer?
for 4 years.
Okay. How soon after this arrest did you ask that the probation be revoked?
The motion to revoke was placed with the DA's office about 2 weeks later. I believe it was on April 7th.
And
I'm not sure what date it was filed with the court.
okay. You know when you communicated with the DA that you wish to have the motion revoked?
It would have been on that motion, on the cover letter of that motion.
That same day?
Yes, on that, when I e-filed the motion, it would have been on that motion.
Did you stamp that with anybody, or did you make that decision by yourself?
Every time that we file a motion, we send it to a supervisor for approval. So it was staffed with a supervisor.
When did you send it to the supervisor for approval?
According to the notes, it would have been on the 7th as well. And then I sent it on to the ADA on that date.
So you
On
waited
April 7th.
So you waited a week or so to file your revocation, correct?
Give or take a few days.
So just earlier you had mentioned that you didn't figure it out until 15 days after it happened. So I'm just trying to get it squared away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess the dates were wrong in my notes.
All right. With respect to what the outcome should be in this case, what was your recommendation to the DA's office about what probation would like to happen with respect to either continuation of probation, extension of probation, jail time?
As far as the recommendation on the motion, is that what you're asking?
Correct.
My original recommendation that was sent on the cover letter of the motion was for revocation.
And did you have a recommendation with respect to sentence, like what should happen if he was in fact revoked?
I don't believe so. It was the one recommendation was for revocation.
Okay. You didn't have an opinion at the time as to whether he should get jail time, extension of probation, or leaving things as they were with additional services?
No, I didn't.
And do you frequently do it that way, or do you frequently give some sort of recommendation for the state?
I don't know if I could give an accurate representation of what I frequently do. It varies based on the surrounding situation. It varies based on the honesty of the defendant. If what he tells me matches up with what he tells the officers in the offense report, a lot of that varies my recommendation.
So in this particular case, you did not make a recommendation.
I didn't make a recommendation for continuance. I made a recommendation for revocation.
Okay. All right. As the witness.
Any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Bell, as far as your recommendation, it was not, it was revocation and incarceration, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, he is also on probation for a felony, correct?
Yes, he has started the probation for the felony while he's been on this probation as well.
Okay. And if he were to be revoked in this case and be sentenced to and have a jail sentence, would that affect his probation at all on the felony?
No, because all of a sanction on a later probation case would not, or on an earlier probation case would not affect his felony. All of that happened before he was placed on probation for the felony.
Okay. My last question, and you might have to check your notes for this. So the allegations that the state dropped the money that he paid and the class, when did he complete those after the motion was filed?
The money was paid shortly before the first hearing. I'd have to get an exact date, but it was a few weeks ago. And the class was completed, the DWI offender education class was completed in May of 2020.
Okay. No further questions, Judge.
Anything else from this witness?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm a little confused. You'd mentioned that there's no way any jail time would affect his prior probation. Is that correct?
No, it wouldn't affect his current felony probation.
Correct. Now, what if he was incarcerated for a long period of time and couldn't comply with the requirements of probation?
We would just pick up where we left off once he got out of incarceration.
You've never seen a
There-
revocation filed while somebody is on probation if they wind up in jail subsequently?
I don't believe I've ever filed one. I can't say that I've never seen one filed.
And would you be the same probation officer as he has for his felony case or just for the misdemeanor?
I'm the same probation officer for both cases.
Now, the district attorney had mentioned to you earlier that you had a rec after all revocation and incarceration, correct?
That was my recommendation. Yes, sir.
I asked you about that earlier and you said that you just had revocation. So I'm trying to figure out how that changed within about a minute.
I apologize. The wording on the letter is revocation and incarceration.
So nothing the DA said to you or asked you changed your mind or coached you on how to change your answer to that question, correct?
No, sir. On the original letter, it
That's the
states,
witness, Judge.
Anything else?
No, Judge.
Is this
Nothing
witness
further, Your Honor.
released?
Released, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're free to go. Any other witnesses?
No witnesses from the respondent, Your Honor.
All right, you rest and close.
Close.
State rest and close.
Yes, Judge.
Any argument?
Yes, Judge. The state is asking that the defendant's probation in this case be revoked. And Your Honor, I'm sorry, before I continue, can I also reserve closing as well?
A minute or so? Yeah.
Judge. The defendant was given deferred on the evading with arrest felony. And I anticipate one of defense counsel's main arguments here is going to be that if he was given deferred on the felony, then he should just be continued on this. Now, I was not in the room when that felony offer was given, but I know that this case was not included in that deferred offer. It wasn't taken into account. But more importantly, felony offers are made in a much different way than misdemeanors. The calculus, at least, is different when determining what kind of offer to give. I apologize, Judge. a felony deferred offer does not mean that other offenses should be taken any less seriously. You heard the defendant in the car after he was arrested. He said very loudly, "I have enough money to pay for all of this."
Judge, objection. I think you've already ruled on that portion of the testimony not coming into evidence.
Sustained.
Your Honor, that was a res geste statement. It was not a question, is not a response to a question from the police officer.
I renew my objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain it. Go ahead and keep talking though.
The defendant's attitude before, during, and after these new offenses are all a perfect example of how he has treated this hearing. I don't think it's lost on the court that he pled not true to an offense that he already pled guilty to in a district court. He has no respect for this court, for this proceeding, or
Your
for...
Honor, I'm going to object to improper argument before the court.
Overrule.
or for the rule of law. And this is on top of all these underlying offenses that we've already been talking about. 1 year, he commits a DWI with a BAC above 0.15. Then the next year, he gets behind the wheel, very intoxicated, drag races with someone.
Objection assumes facts not in evidence, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the 911 calls that are in evidence do reference that.
Okay.
Drag racing at very high speeds, hitting innocent bystanders, causing severe injury, severe mental distress that still exists to this day. He flees the scene. He's only caught because other citizens corral him and don't let him get away.
Your Honor, that's also facts that are not in evidence.
Your Honor, that is also in the 911 call.
Sustained.
He pleads guilty to that. And then the next year, he gets behind the wheel after drinking in broad daylight, driving around parking lots, around kids. Who knows how many times this has happened. We've heard testimony from an uninterested third party that this was not close to the first time that he's done this before. Right by children in a residential neighborhood. And when he's stopped by the police, he evades. If you saw the video, Judge, he's turn after turn after turn where he could have pulled over, and he never did. When he's pulled over, when he gets pulled over, it's very clear that he has been drinking without any statements from him. Just the testimony of his demeanor, you can see on the video, the odor of alcohol, and how he behaved. Judge, the buck does have to stop somewhere, and this is it. It's year after year that this has happened. There are some cases where second chance on probation is warranted, and normally, with less severe cases, that's appropriate. But these are so egregious, and it's happened time and time again, that this defendant's probation must be revoked. The way he's treated his probation and his actions are so egregious and so dangerous that in this revocation, the state has no option but to ask that the defendant's probation be revoked. So that's what we're asking, Judge, that the defendant's probation be revoked and that he be sentenced to 60 days jail.
Does defense have any argument?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Judge. And I appreciate the time that the court's given us and the time that the witnesses have given us to deal with this matter. Your Honor, many times when we're representing folks that have substance abuse issues, alcohol issues, we realize this is something that began a long time ago. will continue throughout these persons' lives. It's not a condition that's going to be magically cured with medication or treatment, but with a lot of effort, not just by the person who has the problem, but by the providers that are going to be attending to his needs. He began his probation. He had to do a substance abuse evaluation. He had to comply with random UAs, and he had to do a lot of stuff to be given that first chance on probation with this case. At the time, as Ms. Crooks had indicated, she was not happy with the outcome of that case, but ultimately, the state, for whatever reason, chose to decide to go ahead and offer probation for Mr. Mendoza. In looking at the chronos, he had been largely compliant. He had the problem with that recent arrest here at the beginning of this year in March. But I do take exception to the mischaracterization of the attitude of my client. I think the videos were very clear that he was cooperative with police. He followed all of their orders. He didn't do a high-speed chase over in this neighborhood. He found a spot to pull over in, and he did in fact pull over. At the end of the day, he admitted guilt to that offense, and he has a much longer probation. He's got a 5-year probation. If he messes that up, he's looking at 2 to 10 years in the penitentiary. He's required to do a heck of a lot more community service. He's required to complete MRT, and there's more eyes on him. They also have the option to move him into substance abuse caseload. Any of those things are available to keep a tighter eye on Mr. Mendoza. When I was a prosecutor, a very wise man once told me, you need to know the difference between a bad guy and a guy that you're mad at, because there is a difference. Characterizing my client as a serial murderer and basically the public enemy #1, I think is incorrect.
Objection, Your Honor, that was never said. Nothing close to that was said.
All I can say, Your Honor, at the end of the day, is that we looked at the situation of what we do with people who commit this offense. We typically will put them on probation and give them opportunities, understanding that there's a risk to the community. But what happens when you put somebody in jail? There's no treatment. They come out the same as they did before, and we satisfy ourselves that they've been punished. Well, since you can't put them away for life, I think it's better to consider the alternatives that exist in these cases. My client has been gainfully employed the entire time. Being away from that job will probably result in the loss of that job. That's going to be a problem for his felony conviction, for his felony probation. Furthermore, we had the officer here say that, you know, hey, I'm not going to revoke him just because he doesn't report for 60 days or 90 days or whatever. But it's the same officer who couldn't really figure out if my client had reported the offense to him instantly or not. I understand these guys are really busy. I'm not going to sit here and call him out and just say he's a liar or anything, because I don't think that's true. I think he's just busy, and it's hard to figure it out and get all your cases straight. Obviously, this pandemic's made this even more complex. But I also think that this pandemic has made it that crowding people into jails and exposing them to the disease is also something we can't avoid. And we've got a plan for his felony probation that lasts 5 years, that got more stuff that he has got to do that will require him to do what he needs to do to comply and sober up. But let's not forget that most people with substance abuse and alcohol abuse issues, it's a long drawn out problem that's going to be chronic in nature for most of them. They're going to have to battle it every day. Yes, there is a point that there is some personal choice to it, but not everybody has substance abuse issues and has to deal with this, just like not everybody has diabetes. And we have plenty of people who are diabetics that refuse to take their medication. They act strangely, and here we have these problems that repeat themselves. And I'm trying to draw parallels to these, Your Honor, because nobody gives anybody a hard time for having diabetes. The judgment of the community when you have substance abuse issues or you have alcohol abuse issues are that you're weak, and that's the only reason you do this. And punishment is the only thing we have and should do. And I just couldn't disagree with that more, Your Honor. And I asked that the court continue him on his probation, extended if necessary. And one final thought, Your Honor. I'm stuck negotiating between felony division and the misdemeanor division. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know that they agree or don't agree, but it's impossible for me to be stuck in the middle of their fights about what should happen in cases. And I just don't agree that that should be the situation and that we ultimately resulted in having to have a trial in this case, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything else from the state?
Briefly, Your Honor. In the defense's closing, and throughout this whole entire proceeding, I've heard nothing but excuses, and I've heard no acceptance of any responsibility for what he did any of the times that he's gotten behind the wheel, intoxicated, and put people's life in danger. It's clear that he had a problem driving away in a car when he was supposed to pull over, evading with a vehicle. He pled guilty to that. This is an entirely different case, entirely different fact pattern from the underlying offense. And in many ways, this case is more important because whenever he drinks, he either injures someone or he comes close to it. The next time this happens, someone might be dead. This is not something about being angry. This is about keeping our community safe. And this is about doing the right thing. There should not be any second chances for someone that keeps on putting other people's lives at risk time and time again. And it certainly is more serious than someone that has diabetes. This is a very serious matter. Mr. Mendoza does have serious issues, and I hope he seeks help, but he also needs to be held responsible for what he's done time and time again. Thank you, Judge.
I watched the videos. I mean, it might be one of the worst DWIs we've had to deal with. The DWI second. But I think what the new offense when he got arrested for evading is probably a DWI third. I mean, he was plastered. And he say he doesn't deserve second chance, or he does deserve second. He's got his second chance. He's got his third chance. He wasn't a good candidate for probation. They gave him a shot at it. He didn't make it. And I think he deserves more than 60 days, but because of COVID, I'm not going to do that to him. But I am going to revoke him. I am going to sentence him to 60 days in jail. Mr. Mendoza, you'll need to be up here next Wednesday to process and then plan on going to jail that day. Can you be here at 10 o'clock that morning?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Your Honor, may I ask that he get work release or be able to serve his time in his home?
Can't get work release on DWI.
Can he serve the time at home and have an additional portable breath machine, Your Honor?
No.
We strongly object to that.
No, not with these offenses, no.
And Your Honor, my only question that I had was you had mentioned that he, in your opinion, committed the DWI third, but that was not charged.
I understand that. I'm just saying he's lucky he's not charged with DWI third.
I understand, Your Honor, but
He was driving a car and he was plastered. And I guess the reason they didn't charge him is because they couldn't get a test done, a blood test done at the hospital because of COVID. So he got a break that day.
But he did get charged with a third-degree felony that had the same punishment range, Your Honor. So I don't know how he actually caught a break, and he took responsibility for it.
Maybe he should have got another third-degree felony. I mean, I'm just saying he didn't get the DWI third charge because he wouldn't give a blood test or breath test, and COVID wouldn't let them get a warrant to get the blood or breath. So anyway, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do 60 days in jail starting next Wednesday. Good luck, y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Judge.